So, does anyone watch Star Trek? Do you know Star Trek? Can you just, and do you like Star Trek? Yeah, great. So, I'm going to talk about static websites because I consider it's like the final frontier of web development. And the funny thing is, I started doing this around 1995. I mean, two things happened in 1995. I mean, the first important thing is that Finland won the ice hockey world championships. So we won Sweden in the finals. We took their song, they made victory song because they were sure they're going to win, and we took their song, and it's like our favorite song now. And yeah, it was a great year. That was like the first reason. The whole country went crazy. It's like Austria wins the football championships. It's the same thing in Finland when Finland wins ice hockey. But the second thing was that we got internet in school. So we got this thing called internet. We had like machines, computers with big displays. It's like big display, small screen. And then you get the internet. And then we got this thing HTML. So first I'm going to describe what things were like in 1995, because then I wrote my first website. I didn't realize it's something important. I was like, yeah, let's do some document, put it on internet. But I'll go through this process. So how did we do this in 1995? Write some HTML. So you go to internet, you find some page that tells you how to write HTML. Write HTML. Something happens, make some money. This is how you get started. I mean, in 1995, most of the internet was like this. So you go to some page under construction. There's always different chief. It's important to change the chief. But the thing is, if you go to internet right now, it's impossible to find sites under construction for some reason. I don't know what happened. Next, maybe you can make the site a little nicer, because I like black, so obviously it has to be black site. I like metal music, so. And I don't know if you remember this, it was super popular. There was Ally McBeal, this TV series, and they had this nice animation. It's my homepage, exclamation mark. And, of course, you're supposed to use Netscape, or this one. And, I mean, we can modernize the site. Yeah, Chrome is enough. We don't care about those things anymore. And you can actually go online and check it out. It's there. But I mean, this was like the fun time of web development. It was easy and fun to do sites. So what's missing from the site? I didn't do a visitor counter. It's one of the important things you should have. I didn't have a web ring. I don't know if you remember this, but there's like this little bar, and you could go to other sites in the bar. It will be like random. You get into the web ring, and then your site link gets displayed on other sites. For some reason, it went out of fashion. I didn't put enough chiefs. I mean, it was really kind of light. I forgot to put Marguerite. If you don't know it, look it up later. And blink tag, that was missing as well. I forgot to put CGI bin script to capture feedback. So you used to have this feedback form, and then it goes through server and whatever. I didn't host it on GeoCDs. Well, it's impossible now because it doesn't exist. So I didn't do anything with CSS. I mean, they were still figuring out what CSS is and how should we do styling. If you look into history, you find that people were thinking about doing CSS in JS in 1995. But it never happened, as you know, right? And it's missing JavaScript because it was still being invented, so I could not do it. And Ajax, another thing, because it was figured out in 2002 or so. I could not do Ajax yet because it wasn't there. And the stack, I mean, HTML. And then we get to this here. So let's see what happened. How do I do this in like this here? So first I go to Twitter, then I do a little search. Then I find whatever is popular right now. Then I initialize a project. Then I install whatever is hyped right now. Then I wait for a while. I get some files. Something happens. I make money. So it's a bit more complicated these days. Not much, a little bit more. And to give you an example, I had this conference like 3 weeks ago, React Finland. I'm still like recovering from that. But I'll describe how I developed this site. So let's see what happened. So the stack, I used HJS and React for templating, for like managing how pages look and so on. I could use just React. I had some legacy code, so HJS is fine. Because I know something about Webpack, I decided to use that for bundling. And then at some point, I figured that because GraphQL is cool, we should use that. And yeah, I put the content on GitHub. I'll show how I did this. And Netlify for hosting. I could host on GitHub pages, but Netlify was better fit. And then I wrote a tool of my own to, marry React with Webpack and to put all this together. It doesn't do much. And the site, one important thing is that it works without JavaScript. So I think you could render the site on 1995 browser, and you will still get it. Architecture-wise, it's a bit like this. So we have, because I started doing the site, it was like normal site, so the content exists on the site. And because our team of organizers was like six developers, and when you organize a conference with developers, all they want to do is to develop things. They don't want to market things, they don't want to sell things, they want to develop things. So they got this bright idea that we should do a conference app. And then I was like, the content is on the site, so how do we share the content between the app and the site? So then I figured that, it's an API. So that's the reason why I pushed the content outside of my site. So I have content repository. On top of that, I have GraphQL API. So through that, the app can get its data. So I changed the content a little bit. The app gets current data. So we don't have to force users to get the new app. And the site, it gets the same data as well. And how this goes together is that I have 2 webhooks in place. So the content changes, and the API gets notified that, you should recompile yourself, because now content is different. And then the site gets, the API tells the site that go compile yourself. So again, we get this new site on the web because of a webhook. I guess this is where I should show how I did the content. So GitHub is my CMS, because if you think about it, Git has some nice features, like history. You can blame people, and you can diff things, and So let's say we find, let's find Ken Wheeler. He was our keynote speaker on the second day. So here's Ken Wheeler. You see Ken Wheeler, right? So we have about an image, and we describe what's a Ken Wheeler. And then we have talks. Let's find his talk. So he was the speaker of this talk, and there was some title, there was some description and whatever. And first this was JSON, but then I realized that it's complicated. It gets complicated when you have to have relations between different types of data, different data. So then I went with JS. And all of this goes together. So I get the data. Then what I can do, because it's like JavaScript right now, I can resolve data, I can combine data, I can do crazy things. So this is where I aggregate my data. So I have this little aggregation layer. It looks like a lot of code, but a lot could be factored out and put into packages and whatever. And one important thing, because I use GraphQL, is that I describe my data. So I have the GraphQL data definition here. So this is, it looks a little complicated, but it's enough to describe what sort of data do I have on the site and how do I use it. And based on this, I can generate an API. So let's go, not that one. Yes. Let's do the next one. So, like this one. So here's the API, and now I should press some buttons. So now I get some data, and you see, so I have the content behind the API, then I get the content through my API, of course, because it's there. So what happens next? I can go to this site. Let's find some page. Maybe we find schedule. It doesn't do much. Let's find speakers. Yeah, this does a bit more. It's the speakers page of the site. So I'll show you what it looks like first. So here's the site, right? And here's the speakers page. So we had someone from Vienna, someone from Berlin, and so on. And it's certain amount of data and so on. And what happens next? I have, here I tell the API I want this data. From speakers I want name, I want their talks, I want this and that. And the rest, then the data goes to React, and then I render and I get HTML out of this. But you see how it goes together. And maybe I'll go back here. But in practice, what happens when I develop? Well, I get the static hosted site per commit. That's something Netlify does for me. So I can actually go back in history and see what the site looked like in like 1 month ago or 3 months ago or whatever. If someone gives me a pull request, I get another site. I get the site against the pull request. I can check out what the site would look like if I accept this change, because it's all static. If I have to change the data model, I can do it like bit by bit. So let's say I decide, for some reason, I decide to rename a field. Well, I could rename the field, and then once the API, once the app and once the site are up to date, I will remove the old field. I don't have to do like big versioning changes. What I learned is that having the schema, just writing out the schema was very valuable for me, because before I wrote it, I already had one, but I just didn't know what it looked like. When I had to type it out, then everything became simpler and clearer. And styling-wise, I'm really in the, 10 years ago, I'm using SAS and these kind of things. So it's not CSS and JS yet, but it will be quite simple to port. And maybe I can show you, because at one point, because I'm not the greatest designer of the world, and I know that. So then I figured that we should do something with the site, because I can do the data model, I can do the programming, I can do a lot of things, but I'm not a designer. So one day I figured that maybe I should hire Andrei Okonesnikov from Vienna to work with me 2 days. So we sit down for 2 days. I was sitting next to Andrei, and I was making sure he does his work. So now you can see the video here. So what happened with React Finland site? So first, we do some design, so we agree on things we should do. So we go through the existing site, and then it's let's figure out some design for the site, make it look like Finland, whatever that means. You see, it's starting to look like Finland. So yeah, I need that cross. And actually the problem was it looked like crosshair at first, so then we figured later that it's not good to have a conference with crosshair, so we changed it a little bit. And yeah, we found some wave thing, and it's actually Figma. You can find it online, this service, so you can design your whole site, and then you can share it, and you can check it out on mobile, and so on. It's very cool. And you see, now we have Andrei likes grid, so we put grid in place. And then we have the design, then we started to actually implement things. So here's the old site on the right, it's React and so on, so then it starts moving around. So you see now it's getting there. So I think we did header first, and then we did something about the content. Yeah, we tried animation. Yeah, it was a bit too much, but the main problem with animation was it was too heavy to run all the time. So now it's only on hover. So when you hover on the header, then you can like see this animation. And sites, I think the main ingredient for websites is the content. So if you go content first, you can fix design later, but if you go design first, you cannot really, and the content is crap, the site is crap as well. So I think we did the right thing by doing content first and then making it look really nice. So here Andre is doing some work, I'm making sure Andre is doing work. And it was nice because Andre got blocked on something and he told me, I'm blocked by this and I can fix the thing and then he can get forward with the thing he's doing. So you can like code things in parallel. He mentioned me that it was like the two most productive days of his life. So if you need a good project manager, I know where to find one. And here we're doing stuff. You see we have the mobile view on the right and then we have the tablet view on the center. So we can make sure everything looks fine on different resolutions. And now it's looking better, so we get some subscribes. The nice thing is that after we launched the new site, we sold a crazy amount of tickets. So I guess the end result is that we sold out the conference 2 months before the conference day, and it was sort of nice and sort of not nice, because then you cannot sell tickets, and people want tickets, they're like, I want tickets, and I'm like, I cannot sell you, sorry guy. But yeah, it's getting there. But I think this shows the current development flow. You can get things done very, very fast when you have the basic blocks in place. You don't have to spend so much time you can think about the design. Yeah, so let's see. I think it's about done. Yeah. So then there you have the programmer design. I mean, the old site, I mean, you can sort of use it, it's fine. Then you have the new site, that looks kind of nice. Yeah, so if you need a new designer, I know one, so. But yeah, there's one problem in this kind of project. What happens if you do a change? So something happens in the content. So I have semantic release in place because it's an NPM package. The content is an NPM package. So I do a little change. I write the commit message right, and then I get new NPM package. And because there's the webhook, then the API I tell API, hey, you should combine yourself. So then it tries to install a new version of content. And because it's semver, it means that if I do major change, it doesn't break things. Then I have to patch things myself, and that's good. And then we have the site. So the site gets notified as well, and then knows to compile itself. And then we have the API, and we get static output and so on. So we glue this thing together. And the whole point is that semver, it holds it together. I can sort of use that here. What's missing from the site? I think it would be nice if you could go to the site and to start modifying. I could do a Chrome plugin. I could do graphical mutations to all of this. So I could get very nice editing experience. I could do like multiple versions, different languages. Like maybe someone wants to read the site in Finnish for some reason. I don't know. It's in Finland. People there speak English. You don't have to speak Finnish with them. But yeah, maybe I could update to Webpack 4. Now it's in Webpack 3. There was some issue updating, so it doesn't matter. I could do a style guide. Let's say I wanted to do multiple conferences. It would make sense to share the same style between multiple sites. I could do BWA. I won't go into that, but it's like one of those nice to have. I could do more with the API, because now I know that someone is from Vienna. It would be nice to know the actual latitude and longitude, so I could have a map. And that's the nice thing about GraphQL. You can, the consumer doesn't have to know how the data is created or where the data comes from. It's just one interface. And behind this, you can do a lot of things. You can pick data from different sources and put them behind the same API, and that's it. I have some prop types in React. I could get the same data from GraphQL, I think. If you think about static sites against like CMS systems, just some points. A static site, it's atomic. This gives me the ability to have instance per commit, so I can have different views on the past. It's simple to host. There's not much to host, and there's not much to attack because it's so simple. And it's quite friendly for developers. If you think about CMS systems, really dynamic by nature, which can be very cool. A bit more complex to host. And because of the complexity, you get something that's easier to attack. But they tend to be more friendly for users, because if you have admin interface, if you have nice editing interface for the content, that's very nice for the end user. But because we are developers, we are comfortable with GitHub, so we can do the same through GitHub. And there's something in between. We call this jam stack, or if you are into C++, you can say static site ++ or whatever. So it's not so black and white. I think there's a huge overlap between static site and CMS systems, and I think it's all going together somehow. So we get this convergence between these two approaches. So we can actually get nice interface for developers and users. And users, they don't have to know it's a static site. It's for them, it's the same. In this case, we generate the data as the data changes. We can get functionality like authentication and databases and whatever through third parties. But the question is, what does it look like in 2031? So now we are sort of know where we are at the moment, but it's good to look in the future a little bit. So how do we do it in 2031? So you tell your favorite service, develop a site for me. Something happens, you make some money. So maybe we live this age of complexity right now. Maybe things can get simpler, because then we know how to do things. Maybe we get artificial intelligence, because this needs to be in a representation of it here. Because the point is that when you have machine working with you, it can complement your capabilities. Let's say you're designing, and it could give you multiple designs to choose from. Blockchain, it's going to happen somehow. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. Machine learning, yeah, we have to make those machines make sites for us. And maybe we can read something from our mind and make the site. There was this, they're doing this in Japan already, I know. So they can get an image out of your mind. So I think if based on that image, you could make a website. Just to conclude a little bit, I think it's still nice to do static sites. So not much happened in the end. If you compare to 1995, you can still do static sites and still make some money if you like. And I think the experience for both users and developers is improving. So there's some convergence, and we get better and better experiences, and designers and developers get closer and closer, and then we can actually communicate and so on. And I think at some point the difference between CMS and static site might go away, so there's just the same thing in the end. And I think you can do more with this approach than you think. It's worth investigating. And this was the key highlight for me, is that when I separated the content from the site, it gave me so much more power, and it made my life a little easier and simpler. So, yeah, you can find the things online later. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions.
That was amazing. So let's see what questions we have.
Yeah, so what screen size do you use to be able to code and preview? Oh, spaces for tabs, of course it's spaces. There's no question.
Okay. Why did you decide to record development process?
I mean, if you can record your process, why not to do it? Because then you can do a nice blog post about it, then you can put it into your presentation. You can do a lot of things with this. So if you're like a freelancer, this is something you should do, because then you can give this to client, and client can see that you're actually doing something, and they can see how you're doing it.
Okay.
About the screen size, I think Andre has he has one of these 4K or 5K displays, or like some really super big display. So I mean, get a big display.
Okay. What would you use for a static e-commerce website?
So my conference site is sort of e-commerce site because we sell tickets. So I go with my own stack, and then I use payment provider from outside. We are not super happy with it, but it works. So I guess it depends on what you like. But I use my own solution, so I will use that.
Okay. And for the headless CMS, what is your favorite one, headless CMS?
Well, again, I baked my own headless CMS, so I go with that. But you can find something super nice and like feature complete online. You don't have to write your own. So, but look into the options. I think there is so much to it.
Okay. And one last question: do you consider rendering time?
Yeah. So the
deal with
site
optimization?
it's static HTML. Renders super fast. There is no router in place at the moment, so it's not like SPA or anything. I did one little trick. I have this interactive functionality, let's say like gallery, and I generate some JavaScript. I bundle while I bundle. So I get this progressive enhancement, and it's like, I don't think there's much to optimize, because it's so fast by default, because it's a static site in the end. So it was considered, but it wasn't like primary thing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So